women making moves where we celebrate the moves that women are making. My name is Amy Pons, founder of Unlock the Magic Coaching, Marketing, and Healing. I'm joined today with Valerie Friedlander. Valerie is a life business alignment coach and host of the podcast Unlimited. She has over 20 years of leadership and personal development study, including coaching certifications, mediation and facilitation training, and business management experience. Spiritually and scientifically based, Valerie's work holistically supports her clients to develop a present and joyful life in harmony with their powerful work in the world. Her philosophy is rooted in individual empowerment with social system awareness. When she's not working with clients, you'll find her hanging with her husband and two sons, working on an art project or nerding out over a sci-fi movie. Valerie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't tell you how excited I am to be on your podcast because I love it.
Thank you so much. I was just laughing to myself as I was reading your bio, not having to do with your bio, but like what I came into this space to you with. I said, Valerie, my office smells like poop. That's what came in as I was reading your bio because it's so cool. And we do such cool things. And I was like, hey, powerful sister, my office smells like poop. And
what would you like to do with that?
Tell me more.
That sounds like a really difficult experience that I will hold space for that.
Oh, what's funny is like, funny, not funny, professional coaching. It's so much of getting back to your own voice. And then spiritually, it's like this balance between ego and divine, if you will, for me at least. And something that we both are skilled at is like, we can coach anyone, anywhere, on anything, anytime, any place. That sounds ego driven, but it's totally not.
Yeah, no, it's really not. And I love the ability to laugh about it, like kind of use it like a joke, but also recognize that it's very powerful. And that reminds me that laughter is very powerful. It's so important to find humor because things can feel so heavy. And I often notice when people look for support, they're feeling really heavy. I mean, how often do you go like, I feel awesome, let me go get some support? I mean, I would love that. I think that would be so cool. And often we don't invest in support for ourselves unless we're like, this is not good.
This is hard right now.
This is hard and I need help.
Humaning is the hardest part.
It is. It is. And we're supposed to have support. And this is one of the struggles that I have like as a coach is exactly what you said, is that it's what's supposed to be there. I don't want to have a job. But I also recognize that there's a really important role that this kind of work holds in a community. And the way it's needed right now is so counter to what I think, well, not counter to, but like, I don't think we should need it the way we need it. And also it's so distorted in the way it's practiced in so many spaces that I struggle with the whole industry and being able to say like, oh, I'm a coach. Like it just doesn't explain anything.
I mean, thank you so much for saying that out loud. And a lot of times it's like, oh, everyone's a coach. No. And being very mindful of navigating, like I like what you posted recently on how to choose a life coach, or like, what does that mean? And it's kind of like if you take a step back and think about the term life coach, it like actually infers that you're bad at life.
Yeah.
What? No. And for me, it's 1:11. Thank you guys. More, please. Prior to this journey for me, I'd spent 20 years in corporate America where I was an executive, and you got a coach once you hit a certain threshold in the company, and the company would pay for it. But it was, ironically, it was always, to me, the folks in the middle, the frozen middle, the middle professionals that everything falls on. They both have to manage all of the day-to-day and all of the feels and all the emotions and all of their coaching all day, every day, their teams. And then, oh, by the way, they're expected to toe the line of the company, things like that. So what's interesting to me and ironic is, again, in this space and time where we have an imbalance of the masculine energy holistically. We all have both. For those of you who don't know energy, divine masculine, divine feminine, we've had an imbalance of masculine for thousands of years. You're seeing the divine feminine come back in, which is why a lot of humans in general feel pinchy because there are still all of the systems in place that thrive upon the imbalanced masculine. So that includes the coaching industry. And I'll
Yes,
tell
it
you what,
does.
so before I got into coaching, I thought it was just this checkbox that, oh, cool, once I get this title, I get this coach. I now am in professional life coaching. I understand for me, my modality is energy. Everything is energy. And that's not necessarily something in the mainstream that someone would sign up for. So it's interesting. It's an interesting place to navigate. The other thing I want to tell you is you're a PCC, which for those who don't know, there are 3 levels of credentialed coaches under an international organization called International Coaching Federation, which is the ethics and standards of a professional coach. I am certified. I am not credentialed. I've taken that test 3 times, Valerie, including the latest brand new ACC. I have a major energy block. I have not passed it. And I'm a damn good ethical coach.
Yeah.
So this is one more piece where I feel like, and of course, my ascension coach is like, until you stop hating the ACC, you're not going to pass it. I totally know that, right? I know that. And it's a thorn in my side because it's an overarching external body that says you aren't this unless you do this. And I vehemently disagree.
Yeah. It's such a tricky situation with that because so the reason I signed up with the ICF and the reason I got the credential, partly because I was like, well, I have all these things, I might as well. But another,
We,
right?
we did all the work.
Yeah, I
No,
did all the work. I might as well get this.
yeah.
But the other thing was because coaching isn't a regulated industry. And there's all kinds of things one could say about regulation, right?
Mhm.
Like there are pros and cons to regulation. And I don't think that just like getting all of the credentials and everything to become a therapist or a doctor or any of those things doesn't naturally, like, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you are going to help people the way that one might think you're going to help people. Like, I'll give you an example. We're going to a pediatrician for a while with my kids who, growing up, we started when they were young. I really loved this person's approach and their energy and really like practical. And we had a issue with one of my kids' arms got, I thought, out of socket, but it wasn't. It was like nurse's elbow or whatever. And we called up. We were like, oh my gosh, we got to go to the hospital. And he's like, no, just do this, and do this. And boom, it was fixed. So like very much like very practical. Great. Loved it. We went to go see this practitioner for a well checkup. And my son was heading into puberty and he had shifted size. And this practitioner came in like, his ratios are all off. This is terrible. You need to cut down on how much he's eating and you need to get him moving more. And I was like, hold up. Hard stop here. Like, no, we're not doing that. One, both my kids are sitting in this room and you are freaking out, perpetuating harmful body norms. No, we're not doing that. He is actually quite aligned with what both sides of his parent experience has been. So like, no, we're not doing that. And I tried to redirect and basically say no. And he was like, well, maybe something's wrong with your genes. And I was like, whoa, we are done. No more. Bye bye. We will not be coming back. So
Keep getting these chills because my ancestral lineage is lining up energetically, hearing what you're talking about. How dare anyone project their expectations and norms
yeah,
onto someone else? And that's where I feel like, to your point, any industry can get that way. And
yes.
coaching has been on the rise, but not everyone's a coach. It
Yeah.
does not, there's no letters or credentials or certificates or pieces of paper that ensures that you're going to excel in your field. It's so many components coming together.
Right. Which is why I wrote the article that I wrote was like, how do you find somebody who's a good
Yeah.
fit for you? Because it's such a personal experience.
Yes.
Working with somebody around your life and to really call this out, life coaching, I think, is important, not because you're doing life badly or something's wrong with you in life, but because the way we are conditioned to do life is so messed up. And so there's a reason why people are struggling and need help. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves, I guess you could say, with the coaching industry, is that so much of it is designed to perpetuate the harmful norms. Let me help you tolerate this better. Let me help you adjust yourself and all of the flags that are happening inside of you saying something is wrong here, and turn them upon yourself and say, no, it's you. You're wrong here, and you just need to work harder and do better and think differently and all of this stuff. And that's where I get like really irritated.
We get a little spicy.
I get a little spicy.
It's like, do I want to be part of this? And it's more, Valerie, at this point, I've built such an energy around it, of course, where like it annoys me so much that it exists. And for those who don't know, we've completed hundreds of hours of coaching training. We've gotten certified. We've gotten our calls, like coaching calls, listened to and approved by the ICF. We've gotten hundreds and hundreds of hours of coaching under our belt. This all leads up to a credential, but it's a test. It's a standardized form of test. And there's something that happens in my energy field when I sit down and take a standardized test. My entire energy just like flips to where like I can't think straight. And that's what it relies upon. Whereas like what I'm doing during a sacred coaching space is creating something reciprocal, sacred, energetic, an exchange. Sometimes your guides drop in and talk to me. It's a spiritual experience. So to your point, I will point out if someone says like, I'm really struggling in my workplace, that's a really normal one, quote unquote normal. It's likely that system, you've outgrown that system and it doesn't feel good anymore. And to your point, you're still feeling beholden to the quote unquote norms of what we were told that is safe in this life.
Yeah. So that's one of the big things that I will do is call that out. And it's calling that out and then asking, what do you want to do with it? Because it's not for me to decide. And I think that's the distinction between someone who is coaching and someone who is consulting or mentoring around these things, is that while I'm not going to think that you will naturally know, like this is the confusion, like your answers reside inside of you. So I don't give you any information about the outside. I just ask you questions. No. That's not what I do, because there's so many things that you're not going to see because you've been conditioned not to see them. The systems exist and perpetuate by not being seen. So the more we can see them, the more access to choice we have. That's what empowerment is choice. I don't empower you. I help you access choice. I remove the things that I can that block you from choosing. So I may say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is very common for people. I see this a lot, and it has to do with these dynamics in our society. So how does that resonate for you? What do you want to do with that? Like ultimately you get to decide. And I do have some clients go, I just need to know how to get through it. Okay. That's a choice that you can make. Yeah. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So sometimes it's where you need to be right now. And it's not for me to judge. I don't judge that. I can help you tolerate it, but I'm not going to help you tolerate it in ignorance that it's a problem. I'm not going to help you tolerate something and thus, unconsciously perpetuate harm on yourself and on other people. You need to know that this is the dynamic and then make some conscious decisions. And maybe you can't make the decision that you want to make right now, but by making a conscious decision now, you'll move closer to making the decisions that you want to make later.
We're the sounding board that builds out the runway in front of you. And again, you're building that for yourself, but we're allowing for the space for you to explore between the one right way that we've been taught, like you're saying. Because I'll take a walk back in my own history. 1, 2, 3. So many synchronicities today. Oh, signals. If you would have come to me 3 years ago and said, Amy, go out on your own, I'd be like, fuck all the way off.
Yeah, same.
Absolutely.
A little further back, but yes, same.
Absolutely no way in hell. And I did have a coach, and I literally looked at her like she's lost her mind because she did actually suggest I do that. That didn't feel good to me yet. It wasn't mine yet. So all I needed was wiggle room, and I was going to wiggle my way out. It's that assessment as the coach. We hold the space, we hold our light, we hold our highest vibration so that when they see themselves, it may be or may not be likely that they will personally not want to be in those environments anymore. And it's not ours. They might be moving their threshold marker. Great, not mine. So it's like, what do you do as a life coach? I listen. I ask questions. How does your workplace make you feel? Where do you feel that in your body? Because I work with chakras as well. We start to unfold like what our body already knows. I might feel something in your energy space. It's not for me to come in and be like, this is what your body is telling you to do.
Well, it's one of the things I do like about doing a video session
Mm.
because I've coached people on the phone and that works fine. And I can hear a difference in people's voices. So those are the things that I'll notice. Like, so I'll just notice patterns or like your tone changed. But like if I were looking at each other on the screen, it'll be like your posture just shifted when you said that. Did you notice that? Like, how did that feel differently? Or we'll explore what would you feel like what would shift if you go to this space and notice those things because our bodies hold so much information. I also used to work in corporate and experienced a lot of toxicity in the corporate space. And it was one of the things that I left because of, but I needed my safety net first. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I just kind of floated through career. Like I climbed the ladder just naturally, just kind of like, all right, this is what you do. And I got to a point where I never really felt like I chose. I just kind of rode the waves that were there. And what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And I heard about corporate coaching and thought, okay, I'll do corporate coaching. That sounds like all the things I like without all the things I don't like. So I'll do that. And then when I got trained, I was like, wait, this is so much more than what I was thinking about. And it resonates on so much more of a spiritual level. I don't want to do the corporate coaching. And this was interesting because I had so many people when I was taught that were like, go for the low hanging fruit, as it were. Like, why don't you offer to coach the company that you're in? And I'm like, hells, I will. No, that won't go well at all. I am way too close to that. I have way too many buttons around this. I will not be able to listen clearly at all in that situation. So no. And even even so, like taking the step back. So I was just talking to a family member who has been in a particular industry for a while and has recently she's been doing like consulting work, like COO, like high, like executive stuff. And the company that she was doing work for has her doing some executive coaching. And she was talking about this, and they have this roster of executive coaches that they pull from for in this industry. And I was like, what qualifications do these people have? And just like out of curiosity, because for corporate coaching and all this stuff, like I thought about pursuing industrial organizational psychology, and my background's in sociology, which I think pairs really nicely with all of the things. But I was just really curious, not because I was like, you have to be credentialed through the ICF, but just how do you know who to use for this? And it was like, oh, well, they have this experience in this industry and, they've hit these levels in this industry and they can do these things in this industry. But she's like, oh, well, we do stuff around emotional intelligence and, communication and things like that. I'm like, okay, but we let people know that we are not actually credentialed coaches. And they're like, oh, that's fine. We like you. We want you to do it. And I'm thinking, so this is another insular thing. Like, because you have experience in the industry and you are now at this level doing this thing, facilitating whatever, consulting, now you can also be a coach. And I know this person, and I think she actually probably is really good at the coaching tools and consulting tools. I think she's probably great with that. But it was kind of like this offhand thing. And like they only go with people who are already in the industry. I'm like, wait, so the industry is using itself to help people grow in the industry. That sounds very problematic. And she was like, oh, there was this one person who doesn't have any experience in the industry, and we just didn't trust sending that person out. And I was like, why? What about that was an issue? And to me, one of the things that I like about the ability to coach in any situation is really the ability to be curious in any situation. If I can access curiosity, then I am not going to just automatically assume certain restrictions, certain limits, certain ways of doing things are how you have to do it to be successful. And if the industry just wants people who already know the industry, then it's basically just perpetuating itself and not really solving any of the underlying issues in the industry, because you're just getting people who are going to buy into some of the basic structural components because that's what worked for them. So they're going to teach
Which
other
is,
people that that's what you do.
and that's what I've seen. Call it whatever you want to call it. I'm so happy for an individual when they gain personal success as it relates to what they've built for themselves. When you try to can that and copy paste it and then sell it to
Yes.
someone else, that feels icky because everyone has their own personal lightning in a bottle moment, like every day. And what resonated with me when I heard you talking about corporate coaches or executive coaches is, again, in my experience, those types of coaches are more like they're hired by the company to be like, teach this executive how to go faster and harder and do more.
Yeah.
And that's actually, again, that's the whole vibe that I unsubscribe from in corporate life. And there's nothing wrong with doing things, achieving metrics, making money. My one ask is, okay, and how do you feel inside once you've made the money, once you've done the thing, once you've earned the metrics? Do you feel amazing because your whole team is healthy and really taken care of and your well-being is really healthy and your mental health is awesome and you feel so good about life? Then that's a fuck yes
Hmm.
on every level. And I don't run across that very often in, not saying it doesn't exist. I just don't run across it very often in the mainstream or what I saw in executive or corporate coaching. And that's not something that landed with me about how the coach I am.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, I think there are people out there who are doing that, who are doing amazing things. I have connected with some incredible coaches who might call themselves executive coaches. I'm not sure, but knowing those people tend to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Those are
Yes.
the people who are having a harder time getting the work from the companies. And that's really more to the point that I want to make with that, isn't that there aren't like people who use that label
Sure. Yeah.
are necessarily perpetuating harm. I think a lot of them are doing good work. And I think, different work looks differently. And the issue that I look to is how organizations are
Mm-hmm.
deciding who to hire for their people.
You're right.
That's the thing that
Yeah.
I would look at. And maybe even invite people who are listening who, if you're in a position to receive executive coaching, to reflect on that and go, what kind of coaching do you want?
Yeah.
And are you being handed a coach, or are you being allowed to select a coach for yourself? Because if you're being handed a coach, if you're being told, okay, here, you've hit this level and you get to work with this person now, really check in. Is that a person that you want to work with? What are you looking for? Not just what is this organization, what does this industry say are the markers of the kind of coach that you should have in order to be successful, to really think about what do you want
Mm-hmm.
and what resonates for you in that kind of work and that kind of support. Because it may very well be that you just need to ask. You could advocate for yourself and say, hey, could I mean, because sometimes we just don't even think we can ask. We don't even think to ask. I know that was true for me. I didn't even think to
And
ask. But to just
I,
be able to say, like, hey, thank you. I appreciate getting a coach. That's awesome. I'd love to have one. Could I pick my own?
exactly. In my last role in corporate, I would have, if somebody was like, what do you want to be coached on? I would like some assistance on the psychological abuse that I'm receiving as a leader because for all intents and purposes on paper, I was crushing it and inside I was not okay. So I love what you're saying. And I tell you what there, Valerie, this last time I took the ACC test in December, I of course missed it by a couple points. I know the questions. I already know which questions I got wrong. Under the ICF, and part of the code of conduct and the standards and the ethics, as you know, is that corporations can choose coaches and sponsor an employee. So it's like what you're saying is like they hand a coach to them. Under ICF, you can do that. To me, that's morally not cool. So I know I got those questions wrong on the test. No one's going to be hiring me on behalf of anybody. I'm going to be talking directly to the person. So, okay. So
Same.
I think we're on the same page, whereas like call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. And I feel a coach, a really strong coach, has the ability to extract someone's unique brilliance and take action on their timeline.
Yeah.
Period. No matter what you call yourself. And to your point, there's still limitation in organizations on average that are still systemically operating in the do more faster. And so there's that disconnect. To your point, if I got my credentials and could quote unquote be a corporate coach, I don't think I'd like it because they would tell me what to do and how to coach. I don't want to do that. Imagine being an executive and just feeling so bad inside, but like crushing it on the outside and masking up every day. What are you going to do in that situation? That's a really hard place to be in. We both have been there.
So I think it is well within your rights to say, would you subsidize me hiring my own coach?
Mm-hmm.
The
Yes.
challenge is that there are a lot of organizations that are afraid to do that because they know that they're toxic and they don't want to change and they don't want to lose you. They want to keep extracting from you. But that's not always true. And that's the other thing that I look at too is, is the organization doing its own work? Like, is it trying to address the culture of the space? And a lot of times the answer is no, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. And I tell you what, here's my personal philosophy on it. Because these organizations, by and large, on average, I'm not broad brushing every single one, but on average, you slap some programs and initiatives on top of the exact systems that have been in place for hundreds of years to benefit one type of person, a human. Mm-hmm. So until that's all dismantled, yeah, we're going to be in this like sticky spot. Yeah, people like us that are going to want you to do your own work might not be welcome in those situations. I'll speak for myself.
Yeah. Well, yes, and the other facet of hiring someone to help you can be being able to see where to move. So maybe you're like, I need the income from this job, and I don't trust that I could get something better elsewhere that would meet me where I'm at. That's one of the reasons I stayed at the company that I was at for so long, was they were able to be flexible with me as a mom. And while there were certainly highly problematic dynamics, like, I don't know if you're going to come back from maternity leave, so we're not going to give you the promotion, those sorts of things, right? I was still afforded a lot of flexibility, benefits, and income. And I needed that right then. And the other thing that can be helpful is discerning, where do I push? How do I advocate for this to be better? What could I do to improve the situation for myself? Maybe it's tolerating it until I can move and do something different, till I have time to explore other options and see, is there actually something that would be a better fit for me out there? Could I create something better? All of those other questions. But it can also be, what does advocacy look like in this workspace? What can I do to improve things for my colleagues, for the people who I support in this space? It could look like all kinds of things. So discernment is key, because honestly, when you're dealing with a lot of stuff, a lot of toxic behaviors, it can be overwhelming. Yeah. Or when, and this is the other thing that I have come up, is that people come into a space that may have like levels of toxicity, right? Like they came from a super toxic space into a slightly toxic space, but they're carrying with them all of the stuff, all the patterns around surviving a super toxic space into a slightly toxic space, which ends up perpetuating toxicity instead of what is it when you reduce toxicity? There's like a word for it. I can't think of it. If you are unlearning those patterns that you've internalized, you can sometimes carry at least colleagues along with you, if not an organization. And I've seen that with some people that I've worked with where, okay, it's slow going and they're not like completely on board and there's pushback, but there is also little bits of progress. And because my client was doing the work to unpack their own internalization of the toxic norms, they were able to go, I'm clocking out for the day and I'm going to put a thing on my email that I will respond to emails in 24 hours, even though these executive people above me are like on 24/7 and on vacation and like perpetuating that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to set a boundary here. And people are like, oh, wait, what did you do? And when you're in a super toxic place, they're going to be like, you can't do that. But like when you're in a slightly toxic place, they might go, oh, that's interesting.
The fact that we have to rank levels of
I
toxicity in
know
the
it's
workplace
ridiculous,
is
but it's
wild. But back to discernment, that's what I will always say, because as you understand, as you heal inside, you will be able to discern the people, places, and things around you that upset your nervous system.
yes.
And you always have the choice to opt into or opt out of that toxic energy. So again, discerning your non-negotiables in life. For example, I'm working with someone right now. We got to a point where their body started to feel better because they set an end point for, okay, I'm going to stay in this situation until X. And the thing about that is like, I want to be mindful about attaching to outcomes as well. Be like, okay, I'm going to set an intention for mid-year to open myself up to new opportunities, not being like on this date, I'm going to be doing this. Like, be careful with that, attaching outcomes,
Yep.
because that's often energetic, something else. But understanding on your own timeline, is this still serving me in this point in time? Letting that person, place, or thing be enough for that moment while giving that space to explore what would serve your favorite self or your growth and healing or your feeling good inside. It's
Yeah.
always, and I have a huge ampersand behind me because I'm like, it's
Always
all,
and.
and
Yeah.
I feel this is bad for me, and I'd like to carry this through until March to get my bonus, let's say, for instance. And like letting your body hear and feel, okay, we're moving toward something. We're not just forcing ourselves anymore. Okay, so tell me about some moves you're excited to be making for the new year, or for us who are witchy and spiritual, our year started. I mean, we're getting ready to wrap up our year, starting a new year in spring. Anyway, what are you up to?
One of the things that I'm excited about is actually just giving myself a little bit of space to sit with that question.
Good.
In my business, I've been doing this for 9 years as a solo practitioner, and I'm excited about the possibilities of not being solo in my work. And I'm not entirely sure what exactly that looks like,
Mhm.
but I am opening room for that in this year because I think one of the big things that we need is more collective work. And I think there's something there within my work. So, tied to that is also doing some more facilitation with small businesses who are trying to do things differently. I've done a couple workshops and retreats with clients who have started businesses who now have a team and really leaning into doing it differently in the world and helping that cohesion as it expands into more collective collaboration work, staying on that same page and really being values aligned and able to energetically relate to each other. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about is all of the possibilities that are opening along that collective work.
I hear you. 2 years into business, I'm starting to feel like I could start collaborating. Because, like, I honestly, for 2 years, like, I didn't want to do a lot of things with people. I wanted away from people because I was so deep in still my corporate wound and healing, and there's still a lot more to do. And I'll go to a post that resonates with what we've been talking about. You posted something recently that is around numbing.
Hmm.
Ooh, numbing. Numbing isn't the same as healing. The trajectory of toleration is not improvement. And what resonates with me on this is that for me personally, I was using alcohol to numb back in my corporate days. It doesn't have to be that blatant or overt like drugs and alcohol. Numbing could be scrolling on your phone, distracting, doing anything in the world to not feel what you're feeling or to address something in your body that's coming up that doesn't feel good or aligned with what you're setting out to do in the world. How do
Yeah.
you help someone realize they're numbing? Because again, it's not on our timeline, right? How would you help someone connect that?
So I usually look at what are you tolerating and where are you with that?
What if they don't know that they are tolerating something?
Yeah, well, that's a great question too. So a lot of times people I work with know that they're tolerating something. They don't know how much they're tolerating. So sometimes it's just pulling the thread.
Yes. What I mean by that is like if you don't know,
Right.
sometimes people come to me and they're like, I want to do something and I have no idea what it is and I don't know who's calling me and I don't know they don't know
Yes.
anything, but they feel called to work with me. And so the reason I ask like how do they know what they're tolerating? It's like when you're an autopilot, but you're getting like the ping
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, what the hell is this? And it's relentless.
Mm-hmm.
Even understanding how to let them know that they're tolerating something that doesn't feel good is maybe sometimes not familiar because they're an autopilot.
Yeah. And so it's really just inviting the reflection. Like, are you allowing room to listen to yourself? Where, I would say instead of a yes or no question, like, because yes or no questions, there's no room, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why we ask more open-ended questions because it creates room for reflection. And so to look at where are you noticing yourself? When are you noticing yourself, your body, your emotions,
Mhm.
your thoughts, your being?
How do you feel at bedtime?
Yeah, that's a big one. Hmm. How do
They're
you feel
like,
when you wake up? In
yeah.
those little moments where you don't have something to do, what happens? Are you rushing to do something else?
It's like, gotta go to sleep. Close your eyes. Sleep, 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 sleep.
Yeah. I think those are the little nudges. Those are little moments to notice something is off. There's a push. There's something, and a lot of times the reason people don't notice is because they think they want something. This comes up all the time.
Yeah.
People, and you probably see this too, a ton, is they think they want one thing, but they're not doing the things to get the thing. And then when we dig in, it's like, well, that's not actually the thing you want. Like, that's the thing you think you're supposed to want, or that's the thing you've been told will get you the thing that you want, but that's not actually the thing that you want. That's a vehicle to get the thing that you want, maybe, but probably not, because it's usually what you've been told is the vehicle to get the thing, but it's not actually the vehicle to get the thing. So noticing in those little spaces what's happening inside of yourself. And how much room are you allowing yourself to notice that? Because if you're not allowing yourself room to pause, whether it's a created pause or a like the one that you chose, are you choosing to pause? Or, in those places where you do pause because you're lying down to go to sleep, what happens? Because if there isn't a pause, if there is a push to do something else, to go somewhere else, to fill the space, there might be something to look at.
Numbing.
Hmm.
You could be doing laundry every day after work just to distract yourself from feeling. It could be anything.
There's so many options. It's just doing the things. Even staying in the same pattern that you hate. I hate coming home and the kids are like yelling and everybody needs my attention and we're doing all this stuff and I just want a moment to think about stuff. This actually came up with a client where she's like, and it's just so hectic and I just want to think about the day for a minute and like all this stuff. And it was a simple address because like she has small children and they need attention, but rather than she didn't like being frustrated about them needing attention, but there was this chaos that happens that she didn't like, but it was normal. It was what had been normalized in her life. And that's the reason we don't notice what we're tolerating and what we're numbing and all of that, is because most of the time those things are the things that we've normalized in our life. And so, just switching to, she takes some time on the train on the way home to go through her day, to like kind of decompress her day and transition. And then she's able to be more present because she's not thinking, oh, I should be doing these other things. That's another one to look out for, is when you're doing something else, thinking you should be doing something else, and you're not actually being present. When you're not present with yourself, that is a form of numbing.
And you're setting off an energetic chain of events, not only in yourself, but the others in your vicinity.
Yes.
So kids pick up on that, etc.
Yep.
And that goes back to like what a lot of mainstream will tell you, well, you're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's the balance between what we normalize, and it's not your fault. It's asking to be aware. It's asking yourself to be aware of the normalization.
Mm-hmm.
But all
Well,
too often, like when people are like, women need to get out of their own way, I really dislike that vibe.
yeah.
No. No one's in their own way. Okay.
Oh,
It's so much of lineage. It's lived experience. It's conditioning programming, and no one can do it for you. So there's an accountability personally on that, and it's not your fault. So it's like, it's the end.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I recently had an interview with Cher Hale, and she was talking about attention. And one of the things that inspired her to talk about attention was her kids, and reading all these parent posts that were like, well, they're just doing it for attention, so this is how you handle it. And she's like, what's wrong with them wanting attention?
Yeah.
And because she does PR, she was like, well, this is something that I'm seeing throughout, like with my adults that I'm working with, is that they're resistant to attention. And so like with this, going back to this client, like that is also unintentionally perpetuating another norm, which is irritation that the kids need attention. And so when we don't take the time to really look at ourselves and what we need and what the patterns are that we're in, because most of them are conditioned patterns, they're not your fault, and you can do something about them, as you said. When we don't take the space to look at those, we end up perpetuating them into the people around us, including our next generations, and we can do it differently. You can enjoy your life and all the other things. And I say enjoy your life, and I want to be clear about that, because I think a lot of times that gets used as like, suddenly you'll be happy all the time. No, you'll have access to a full range of motion. You work with a physical therapist, right? To get access to the full range of motion in your shoulders or your hips or whatever. Like working with a life coach is about getting access to the full range of your being.
Spoiler alert. It sometimes hurts like hell.
Yeah.
To heal and to do the work. And it's not only exquisitely worth it, but also once it comes into land or comes up to heal, it will get louder if you don't address it. And then it becomes more of a blocker, and likely something in the physical realm that will sit you still, whether you like it or not. So anyway, we know.
And I imagine you're saying that, as I do, from experience, both personally and with clients, because adrenal fatigue.
Yep.
Absolutely. I have several clients who come to me because of various chronic illnesses that have manifested in their bodies and all of that. So yes, that is
it started as energy inside of us that stayed put and that we ignored. So, and again, it's not your fault. I guess
it's not your fault.
It's like I'll keep like this whole cycle about it's not your fault and do something about it. Be accountable. Anyway.
Yep.
Valerie, where can we find you?
You can find me online at valeriefriedlander.com, which is my website. I also have a podcast called Unlimited, and so you can find me there. I'm currently on break, but I'll be back. I'm mishy on social media right now, but most social media sites, you can find me at Unlimited Coach Val.
Closing remarks as we wrap up. What's on your heart, or what has recently been in your orbit or on your windshield that you'd like to share with the collective?
I just really want the people listening to know that you're not alone, and there's nothing wrong with you, and you get to choose how you move forward. And you don't have to do that alone. Even though that is self-work, you don't have to do self-work alone. It can be challenging to find the right person, and you're worth the time to seek the right person out to support you, or people. You can have a team. I like teams.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.